everyone, welcome to week 2 of Boss Camp. We hope last week went great. We have some really good stuff in store for you this week. So we hope you're excited. We're going to go over your challenges for the week first, and then we're going to dive right into cutting sugar. So first challenge this week, we're sticking with 100 ounces of water every single day just because you're already on a roll with it. Water is so good for you, and we want this to really be a lifelong habit that you keep with you after Boss Camp ends. Our second one is we are cutting sugar this week. So we're going to talk a lot about that today, but basically we're focusing mostly on processed sugar, added sugar. We're not going to ask you to get crazy about reading every single label or cutting out fruit. We just want the big, anything sweets, breads, like sugary breads, candy, cookies, all of that stuff we're cutting for the week. Our third habit for this week that we're going to incorporate in is getting 8,000 to 10,000 steps. Now this makes the biggest difference for all of my clients that are wanting to see results. It's just moving more. Last week we talked about that NEAT and how to get in those non-exercise activity calories burned. If you guys want to really focus on this one, I want you to download the Health app. It's probably already on your iPhone. If you have it, it automatically counts your steps whenever your phone's with you if you don't have an Apple Watch or a step counter, or there's a lot of other great apps to do that. But make sure you're making that conscious effort to get 8,000 to 10,000 steps in every day. Lastly, we are increasing your sweat sessions to 5 for the week. It's going to be a little bit outside your comfort zone, which is what we want because that's when you change the most. You can use these 8,000 to 10,000 steps as your movement calories. Remember, all you have to do to change is to do something different than what your body's already used to doing. So if you're newer to exercise or just starting out, you can definitely use those step days as your workouts. Or if you're a veteran at working out and you want to see big results, we want you to get in some additional sweat sessions, okay? So stay tuned for our workout tomorrow. You're going to love it. But let's dive into sugar. I know cutting sugar is hard. Our brain on sugar looks exactly the same as our brain does on drugs. It's literally addicted. And so I'm not gonna lie, the first few days are hard. If you are used to eating sugar or even just having a little bit every day, it's gonna be a little bit of a challenge, but we're gonna help you a lot today. We're gonna problem solve because cutting out sugar is the best thing that you can do to see lasting results. So we wanna help get you there this week. A couple things about why we want to cut sugar. So sugar is not only an empty calorie, it is actually a negative calorie. It sucks out nutrients in your body, which we work so hard to get, but it's going to basically demand so much of your body. It causes inflammation. It decreases our brain function. So if you're feeling brain fog, could be because you're intaking too much sugar. And it spikes insulin, which is gonna cause us to store fat. Remember last week we talked about we don't want our calories to cause us to spike and drop and spike and drop. We want a nice even keel. So that's what happens when we have too much sugar in our body. So all of these reasons is why we're asking you to cut out sugar this week. We really want everyone to commit to this. But we know it's not easy. So we are gonna help you problem solve so that your sugar cravings don't get the best of you this week and that you can learn in the future how to prevent those from coming on. So our first section that we find is one of the most common for a lot of our clients is afternoon cravings. So a lot of times you'll do great with your breakfast, great with your lunch, feel like you're on a roll, and then that afternoon's gonna hit, or you get home from work and all of a sudden you just need something sweet, right? And so it's all about setting your day up for success. It's not necessarily just stamping down that craving and, trying to will yourself not to have it. It's about setting up your day so you don't actually have it. One of the best things you can do is to increase your nutrients earlier. Remember, our body craves nutrients, not calories. And so if you haven't gotten enough of the good stuff earlier, haven't gotten enough fiber from veggies or protein, your body's gonna crave it. And when your body craves energy or craves nutrients, the fastest form is from that carbohydrates. That's why it's sending you those sugar craving signals. The best way to combat it is to make sure you get enough fat in earlier in the day, specifically breakfast. If if you start your breakfast off with something sugary or kind of sweeter, some oatmeal or, a really sweet smoothie, you're gonna crave it more during the day. So a great way to combat that is to have something a little bit more savory for breakfast. Maybe have eggs, avocado, some greens, and then make sure you're getting enough fat in lunch or in breakfast and lunch. That's gonna make a huge difference for your afternoon cravings. So try that this week. The next thing is if you feel like you have the munchies constantly, like, oh, I just need something else. That could be because you aren't getting enough sleep or your sleep quality is bad. Sleep directly affects our hormones, specifically ghrelin and leptin, which are our hunger hormones. That's what causes us to feel satiated. So if you feel like you're constantly munching or needing something, we really want you to start looking at your sleep. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to get the most out of your sleep. But right now, we want you to just focus on doing everything you can at the end of the night. Turn off your electronics. Try and have some sleepy time tea. Anything you can do to get better quality sleep if you feel like those munchies are really where your sugar cravings are coming from. Third is a habit. So last week you had a email about how to cut bad habits and to increase good habits. Well, like any habit, we're cued, right? So we learned that last week. So if you feel like after every meal you're like, I want something sweet, it's just a habit. You're just used to every time you eat a meal, you're finishing it off with something sweet. So we want to change that cue. So we want you to habit stack, like last week's email talks about, with something other than sugar, right? So it can be anything. It can be that you make yourself a cup of tea every time you finish a meal. It could be that you do 10 squats. It could be that you go for a walk outside, something really easy and attainable, but recognize that sometimes they're not real cravings. They're just a habit that you've formed. So we're gonna work on breaking that bad habit, okay? The last one is a trigger. This is really, really common, especially when you're trying to get rid of sugar cravings, that we kind of replace it with something it's not as bad, but it's gonna do the same thing to our brain. So if you're loading up your diet with a lot of protein bars or fake sweeteners or something, adding stevia to your coffee does the same thing to your brain as actual sugar does. And so while it doesn't have all the negative side effects, we're not ever cutting that brain craving that, and that's really the goal. So the best thing you can do is be aware of what those triggers are and keep them out of the house. So if you know, oh man, every time I have a smoothie, I'm just hankering for something sweet the rest of the day. Or when I have a protein bar, it just makes me crave cookies more. Number one, be aware. And number two, just get it out of the house and try and cut those things out cold turkey, okay? So we know this week is going to be a little bit more of a challenge. Remember, it takes 3 days to feel like you're over the hump of those sugar cravings. So until then, remember why you started this journey. Recognize that it's going to be so worth it once you get through those 3 days. And maybe supplement with something like a BCAAs or drinking green tea during the day. Something that's going to kind of give you a little bit of satiation until you get through those first hard days. But again, reach out to us if you have any questions, and have a great week.